Hello everyone, today we are going to talk about how do children learn language rules, a parent's guide. Language learning is a fascinating journey. Before children start speaking fluently, they must first understand how language works, how sounds, words, and sentences come together to communicate meaning. Think of language as a puzzle. Just like putting puzzle pieces together, children learn to connect sounds, words, and grammar rules to express themselves. How do we know language rules? A parent guide. Did you know that your child is constantly analyzing and learning language rules, even without formal teaching? Most of us follow grammar and pronunciation rules without even consciously thinking about them. Where do language rules come from? Even if you are not a linguist, you instinctively know when a sentence sounds right or wrong. This happens because children observe language through experience, hearing speech, songs, and stories. Their brains track patterns. What sounds normal and what sounds off. They adjust their speech naturally, without needing to memorize complex grammar rules. A child might say, I goed to the park. It sounds incorrect, but they're actually applying a language rule, adding ed for the past tense. Over time, they hear the correct form, I went to the park, and adjust naturally. Why do some sentences sound wrong to us? When we hear incorrect grammar or unnatural speech, our brain alerts us. This happens because our ears are tuned to patterns we've heard before. Incorrect combinations stand out. They don't fit the patterns we expect. Even without formal grammar lessons, we develop a feel for correct language use. Example, imagine someone says, she cat on the table is. This sounds wrong, even if you can explain why. This because your brain knows she's under the table or the cat is under the table. Makes sense. How do children learn their first language? So how the first language acquisition is going? A parent's guide. Children acquire their native language naturally, without formal instruction. They don't need to learn grammar rules explicitly. They observe them from everyday conversations. However, learning a second language often requires explicit rules and structured teaching. How do children learn their first language? Parents and caregivers provide the building blocks of language by talking, singing, and interacting with their child. Children unconsciously analyze and observe patterns from speech. They adjust their language over time through trial and error. For example, a toddler hears, look at the big dog. Later they say, big dog. They pick it up, the structure naturally. No need for grammar lessons. The child figures out the rules from hearing language in real life. How is learning a foreign language different? Explicit teaching is often needed. Learners need explanations like, in English we say I go, but in the past we say I went. Practice and repetition matter. Foreign language learners don't hear enough natural input daily. Mistakes take longer for self-correct because they don't have as much exposure. For example, a foreign learner might say, I go to school. A teacher would need to explain that correct form is I went to school. How can parents help with language learning? For the first language development, talk and read to your child daily. Let them explore and experiment with words. Expand on their sentences. Child, big car. Parent, yes, it's a big red car. For second language learning, Provide structures exposure, books, songs, interactive activities. Teach common patterns and rules in a fun way. Encourage speaking practice even if mistakes happen. How can parents help with language learning? For first language development, talk and read to your child daily. Let them explore and experiment with words. Expand on their sentences. Child, big car, parent, yes, it's a big red car. For second language learning, provide structured exposure. Books, songs, interactive games. So, our first language are absorbed naturally. Children learn by listening and interacting. Second language often require rules and structured learning. The more a child is exposed to a language, the easier it becomes. Baby babbling, a parent's guide to early speech development. We often use the phrase baby talk to describe unclear or simple speech. But what is really baby babbling and how does it relate to language development? It's an early form of communication, and do all children go through this stage? What sounds do babies make in their first year? Newborn crying. So it's from 0 to 2 months. The very first form of communication. All babies cry. In the same way, at birth, a natural reflex, not yet influenced by language. Over time, parents notice different types of cry. Hunger cry, urgent, repetitive, pain cry, sudden, high-pitched, intensive, attention-seeking cry, a more varied, sometimes fake cry to get a caregiver's response. Fun fact. Parents, especially mothers, can instinctively tell the difference between these cries, even though scientists struggle to describe them. It's a fun fact. From cries to babbling, early language development. Going 2-4 months. Babies start making soft vowel-like sounds. Ooh, ah. This is their first step toward experimenting with speech sounds. Babbling 4-7 months. Repetitive sounds like baba, mama, dada. Babies practice different tones and rhythms, a sign of learning conversational patterns. Advanced babbling, 7-12 months. More varied and intentional sounds develop. Babies start miming their rhythm or real speech. Even the words don't make sense yet. Gesture appear, pointing, waving, or raising arms to be picked up. At this stage, babbling is a child's way of preparing for real words. Does every baby babble? Yes, almost all babies go through a babbling stage. It's a universal part of speech development. However, the sounds they make start to reflect their native language. By 6-9 months, babies exposed to different language sound different in their babbling. Babies raised in bilingual environments might take a little longer to say their first words, but often become more flexible language learners later on. How can parents support early speech development? Talk to your baby. Respond to their babbling as its first real conversation. Example, baby, baba, parent, oh, you see your bottle, you want your bottle. Sing and use repetition. Songs, rhymes, and repeated phrases help babies learn sounds. Example, pet a cake, it's a bitsy spider, play imitation games. Copy their sounds, then pause and wait. This teaches tone-taking in conversations. Example, baby dada dada, parent dada dada, wow, you're talking to me. Pay attention to gestures. If your baby points at something, label it. Oh, you see the car. Gestures help babies bridge the gap between babbling and real words. Read together every day. Even if they don't understand, babies love hearing your voice and seeing pictures. Key takeaways for parents. Babbling is a crucial pre-language stage. It's how babies practice speech before saying words. Every baby progresses at their own pace, but responding to their sounds helps them learn faster. Talking, singing, and playing are the best ways to support language development. What is the big picture? Babbling is a huge step toward the speech, real speech. Your reactions shape your baby's language development. Talking, singing, and playing with sounds helps them become confident speakers. The secret word of baby babbling, what it tells us about language development. Did you know that by 6-7 months your baby babbling already carries the melody of their native language? Even though they aren't saying real words yet, their speech patterns are shaped by what they hear around them. How does babbling change over time? 6-7 months. Babbling starts to include different syllables. Ba, da, ma instead just ba, ba, ba. Intonation appears. Your baby's voice rises and falls as they are talking. They start to sound more like their native language, even though the words don't make sense yet. Fun fact. Babies don't just copy what they hear immediately. They observe speech patterns over time and recreate them later. Research insight. A study compared Chinese and American babies babbling at 6-8 months old. The Chinese babies mostly produce vowel-like sounds in single syllables. The American babies repeated syllables more often, ba 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 ba. When adults hear the recordings, they could tell which babies spoke which language, even though they couldn't explain how. What does this mean? Even before saying real words, babies are already tuned in to the speech rhythms of their home language. Do deaf babies babble? Yes, deaf babies also babble. But if they don't hear spoken language, their babbling gradually fades away. Babies exposed to sign language babble with their hands. They make repetitive hand motions like to how hearing babies babble with sounds. Why is this important? A baby's babbling can give early clues about future speech development. Speech therapists can often predict if a child might have language delays based on the variety of their babbling. The more expressive and varied baby babbling, the stronger their future language skills. Is babbling a form of communication? Babies often babble when they're alone. This suggests they are not trying to communicate, but rather exploring their own voice. But sometimes babbling changes when a caregiver is around. Self-babbling, when babies babble just for fun, and social babbling, when babies make sounds to get attention. How can parents encourage speech? Talk back. Repeat your baby's sounds and add words. Use exaggerated expressions. Babies love animated speech. Sing and read. Helps reinforce natural speech rhythms. From babbling to words. How babies learn to talk. Even wondered why babies babble so effortlessly. By saying real words takes time and effort. It turns out babbling is like a playful rehearsal before the real challenge of speech begins. Why is babbling important? Babbling is not just random noise. It's a crucial stage where babies exercise their vocal cords, practicing sounds for future speech. Tune their ears to their own voice, learning to match what they hear with what they produce. Develop control over their mouth and tongue movements, essential for clear pronunciation later on. Interesting pattern. Researchers found that babies learn sounds in babbling in the same order as they later learn them in words. First, easy lip sounds. B, p, like mama, baba. Then tongue, tip sound. D, t, n. Later, harder sounds. K, g, s, r, which appear later in words. Fun fact. Babies actually make a much wider range of sounds while babbling than they will later use in their native language. This is why babbling can sound like universal baby language. Why is saying words harder than babbling? In babbling, there is no pressure. Babies exposure sounds freely, just like birds singing for fun. They don't need to make words that others understand. In real speech, words must be clear. Saying a word means matching an exact sound pattern. The baby must control mouth movements carefully. They need to be understood by others. This is much harder than playful babbling. Key difference: babbling is natural and spontaneous, while real words require effort, memory, and control. When does babbling become real speech? Around 12 months, babbling starts tuning into meaningful words. This shift happens right when babies transition from infancy to toddlerhood, a major milestone. At this point, babies move from pre-speech random sounds to actual speech, words with meaning. How can parents help the transition from babbling to words? Talk a lot. Narrate what you are doing. We are eating apples, we are going to shop, we are going to read a book. The more words babies hear, the faster they learn. Read and sing. Books and songs help babies connect sounds with real meaning. Point to pictures and name them. Look, a dog. Woof, woof. How can parents help the transition from babbling to words? Respond to babbling. Treat babbling like a conversation. Baby, ba ba ba. Parent, yes, Baba is waving. Use gestures and expressions. Wave, point, and show excitement. This makes words more memorable. Be patient. Learning words takes time. Celebrate small steps. Babbling is like a fun rehearsal before real speech. Always remember about it. Babies first explore sounds freely, but real words require control. The transition to words happens around 12 months, just as infancy ends. Talking, singing, and playing with your baby will help them learn faster. So, that's it for today. I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, I will be more than happy to read them. Please send them. And I hope you're gonna have a great day. See you.